Okay, so today we're going into some really unsettling territory. We're not talking about news reports you might just glance at. We're looking at raw personal stories, real people who are suddenly trapped in the middle of school lockdowns. Terrifying stuff. We gathered these accounts from different places, and each one gives you this first-hand view of how fast a totally normal day can just flip into something life or death. What we want to do today is really get into the human side of these emergencies. The quick decisions, the fear, the really deep fear, and how these things stick with people afterwards.
Absolutely. And these stories, they're so personal. They do more than just recount events. They really show us where the weak spots are, often in places we think of as completely safe, like schools. It just underlines how vital it is to understand what these events are actually like psychologically and, practically.
Exactly. So let's dive into the first one. This happened at a high school just outside Austin, Texas. It's from the perspective of a substitute teacher. Her day started out, pretty ordinary. Subbing math classes, then she had an off period, so she went to the teacher's lounge. It was empty. And this lounge, its location is kind of key. It was tucked way in the back corner of the school, right near a separate back entrance door. And that door, only supposed to be unlocked from the outside with a teacher's ID card. So she's in there working, and she hears a knock. Looks up, sees this guy through the glass, clean-cut looking, short gray hair, wearing a button-down, khakis, black jacket. Looked like he belonged there, He gives a little smile, says he's Mr. Abrams, says he forgot his ID. So she didn't really think twice, just opened the door for him. But the second she did, she got this weird feeling, a sense of unease. He thanked her, but then walked past her really fast, like with this serious purpose in his step. And his hand was jammed deep in his right pocket. He headed straight for the math hallway. Something just felt off, really wrong. So she goes straight back to her laptop, pulls up the staff directory, frantically searching for Abrams. Nothing. Not a single teacher with that name. Not in that school, not elementary, not middle, not high school. Nobody. She knew right away she had to call the front office. Now. And they took it very seriously on the other end. Immediately. Lockdown issued. Just like that. An automatic distress signal goes out to every single classroom. Lock your doors, turn off the lights. Now. And then, from that same math hallway he walked into, she starts hearing it. A commotion. Bangs. Like someone kicking a door. Hard. And then a man's voice screaming, "Maria, open up! I know you're in there!" And Maria, that was the teacher she was subbing for. She realized he was kicking on the door of one of the classrooms she'd just been teaching in. Terrifying, isn't it? How fast that escalated.
It really is. And this story, it's a perfect example of something we sometimes see in security analysis, this idea of normalization of deviance. Small rule breaks, like letting someone in without ID, especially if it seems harmless or you do it once or twice without issue, can kind of lower your guard over time. What seems like just being polite, just small courtesy, can suddenly become a massive security failure. It really shows the human cost, not just the potential danger, but the guilt, the what-ifs for the person involved.
Oh, absolutely. And the substitute felt that intensely. Police were there incredibly fast, like literally minutes. Surrounded the school, came in through different entrances, and they got the guy. Detained him. The rumor that went around later was just chilling. He was apparently Maria's ex-husband, and he'd come there to kill her and then himself. Maria didn't come back to work for months after that, and the substitute, she still says how thankful she is every day that nobody got hurt, but she carries that weight, thinking I was the one who let him in. She said it would have been on her conscience forever. All right, let's shift gears. Our next story takes place on a university campus. Different setting, different kind of fear. It's a freezing cold winter night in Massachusetts. This is from a freshman student walking back to her dorm. She'd just finished her last class. It was already dark out. And as she's walking, her phone buzzes. It's a campus alert text. Urgent. All caps. It said something like, "Attention all faculty and staff, get to a safe building immediately. Suspicious man on campus approaching women, making crude, threatening comments, says he has a gun. University police are aware. On alert." So immediately, her anxiety just skyrockets. Understandably, she starts walking faster, keeps glancing over her shoulder every few seconds. And then she sees him. Someone walking behind her. Not super close, but definitely there. She described him as a black man in a really big, bulky winter coat. She gets to her dorm building, fumbles with her ID, swipes in through the first door, pulls open the second. Just as she gets inside, bang. A loud bang on that first door she just came through. It's the man. He calls out, "Please, I'm cold." She asks him carefully, "Do you live here? What's your room number?" He claims he lives on the third floor, but just ignores the question about the room number. She asked twice, so she had to tell him, "Sorry, I can't let you in." And that's when everything changed. His whole attitude flipped. Instantly, he starts saying these vile, awful things to her. Things she said she still doesn't even want to repeat. And he starts licking the glass on the door, making these disgusting comments about what he's going to do to her when he gets inside. She was just disgusted, terrified. She turned and ran straight to her room, slammed and locked the door. I mean, that kind of direct threat, the verbal assault, it must be psychologically devastating.
Oh, absolutely devastating. This really brings up the issue of psychological terror. That kind of direct, personal, verbal attack, it's incredibly intimate in a horrifying way. It can be just as traumatizing, sometimes even more so than a physical threat, because it's aimed right at your sense of safety yourself. And how quickly it turned to from asking for help to this incredibly disturbing, aggressive display. That whiplash is terrifying in itself.
Yeah. So she immediately texted her dorm group chat, telling them what happened. Replies flew back instantly. OMG, call UMPD, call the police. So she did. She called university police. The officer on the line asked if the man was still outside the building. She cautiously went to her window to look down. And what she saw made her scream. Just a raw scream for like 3 solid seconds. The man was right there, looking up at her window, smiling, shaking his head slowly, and doing this truly disgusting motion with his tongue. She just screamed at the officer, "Send someone now, please." Right after that, the man just took off running, vanished into the dark. Police got there fast. They told her to stay put, lock her door, tell her friends on the floor to do the same. They sent out another alert, this time just to her specific dorm building. They searched all night, but they never found him. She said the things he yelled at her were just beyond disturbing. And even though she never saw a gun, that huge coat, anything could have been in those pockets. The campus had extra police patrols for the rest of the week. You could feel the tension. Okay, now, let's change perspective again. This next one involves someone much younger. It shows a different kind of vulnerability. This is from someone who was in 2nd grade at the time, elementary school. She said lockdown drills were pretty normal for them. Routine. Almost. Fun. In that way kids see things. Like a game. So this particular day, she's in art class. And in art class, the hall pass to go to the bathroom was this special thing, a big green plastic crayon. And this little girl, she was feeling kind of impulsive, just grabbed the crayon pass without asking the teacher and headed down the long hall to the bathroom. She's in the bathroom stall, and suddenly she hears it. The announcement over the loudspeaker echoing outside the bathroom door, "The school's going into a lockdown." Her heart just started pounding. She knew the rules. You're supposed to be in a classroom. And she was out here, in the hallway, during a real lockdown. She was terrified. So she doesn't even know if she finished peeing. She just jumped off the toilet, ran out of the stall, got to the hallway, looked around. Every single classroom door was shut tight. Blinds pulled down, lights off. She was locked out. Too late. So she's standing there, probably more scared of getting in trouble than anything else at first. And she sees a man walking down the hall towards her. She figured it must be a teacher, right? Even though she noted he wasn't really dressed like one. So with that 2nd grader logic, she just walks up to him. Says innocently, "Excuse me, I'm locked out of my classroom." And his response, chilling. He says, "Oh, that's all right. Come with me. I know where to go." And then he took her hand, and they started walking. Seemed like they were heading towards the back exit of the school. It really shows how easily a child's trust can be taken advantage of, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. That contrast is so stark, isn't it? The child's natural assumption of safety that adults are there to help versus the potential reality of the situation. Schools teach stranger danger, but in a moment of panic or confusion, a child's instinct might be to trust any adult offering help. It raises a tough question. How do you teach caution without destroying trust? It shows that even with protocols, vigilance is key, because deception can be frighteningly simple.
Thankfully, vigilance showed up. Just as they were walking, she heard her name being screamed. Troy! It was her art teacher, Miss Green. Running down the hall towards them, Miss Green yelled at the man something like, "Get off her," grabbed Troy's arm, and literally pulled her back towards the art room. Once they were inside, Miss Green locked the door immediately. She scolded Troy, but quietly. But Troy said she clearly remembers the look in Miss Green's eyes. Pure worry. She thinks her teacher might have even been crying a little. They stayed in lockdown for at least another half hour after that. Miss Green must have called the office because the school day ended early. Parents were called. And Troy, looking back, feels immense gratitude. She says Miss Green really put herself out there, saved her from something awful. Could have been kidnapping, could have just been serious trauma. A real hero. Okay, 4th story. We're moving to a high school in Mississippi now. This takes place during a morning rehearsal for the wind ensemble in the band hall. Now this band hall had a door that led directly outside, and the band directors were apparently really strict about it. They told the students over and over, never open that door for anyone outside, unless it was another student. And even then, the student had to show their school ID badge through the little window first. Clear rules. But right in the middle of playing a piece, someone knocked. And a student in the percussion section just got up, walked over, opened the door, just like that. Didn't check. And the second the door opens, this man steps inside forcefully. Described as a middle-aged Latino man, maybe 5'6", wearing a gray hoodie, cargo shorts. He walked maybe 15, 20 feet into the room. And the student telling the story noticed right away. Both his hands were shoved deep into his hoodie pockets. Looked like he was holding something heavy inside. The band director saw him, stopped conducting immediately. The music just died. Everyone turned to look. The director, sounding nervous but trying to be firm, asked, "Can I help you?" The man answered, kind of broken English, "Yes, I came to check out my daughter." The director told him, "This isn't the office. You can't check out students here. You shouldn't be in here." Then the man asks, okay, where does he go to check her out? And this is where it gets, well, questionable. The director, instead of telling him to leave the way he came, pointed him further into the school. Told him to go out the double doors at the other end of the band hall, make a right, go down the main school hallway to the front office. The man just said thank you and walked quickly out that way into the main part of the school. That's an interesting choice by the director.
It's a very interesting and potentially risky choice. From a security perspective, this is pretty concerning. When faced with a potential threat, especially someone who entered improperly and might be armed, the primary goal is usually containment and removal away from the general population. Directing him deeper into the school, even towards the office, increases the exposure risk for everyone else. It's possible the director was trying to de-escalate, maybe avoid confrontation in the band hall itself, but it's a classic example of how high-stress situations can lead to decisions that, in hindsight, seem counterintuitive to safety protocols. Training needs to cover these complex judgment calls.
Right. And during that whole exchange, the student telling this story, she had her big double bass instrument turned towards the man. She was hiding behind it, hoping, she said, it would somewhat shield me from any bullets, just bracing for the worst. After the man left the band hall and went into the main hallway, the whole orchestra was just stunned, silent. The director immediately got on the phone, called school security. Within a minute, the whole school went into lockdown. Lights off again. Students were scrambling, hiding in instrument lockers, tuba lockers, anywhere they could fit. About 5 minutes later, they saw 2 armed security guards sprint through the band hall, heading the same direction the man went. The lockdown ended maybe 10 minutes after that. The school never really said what happened officially, but the students pieced it together later from rumors and other accounts. Turns out, the man had just committed an armed robbery nearby. He was running from the police on foot. He saw the school, decided to duck inside, made up the story about his daughter. And yes, when they caught him inside the school, he did have a gun on him. That explained the heavy object in his hoodie. The student narrator says she's still shaken up by it, being maybe 15 feet away from an armed fugitive inside her school for a good 2 minutes. And she firmly believed the director made a huge mistake sending him deeper into the building. Okay, one last story. This one takes us back to elementary school, 4th grade, a Catholic private school. And just like the 2nd grader, this student remembers lockdown drills being kind of fun, a break from class, almost a joke. Kids that age, they often don't really connect the drill to a real danger, right? They never think it'll actually happen. But then, one day, it did. The voice came over the intercom from the office. But it wasn't the usual drill tone. It sounded serious. We're going into lockdown. This is not a drill. Some kids apparently still giggled, thought it was maybe a new, more realistic drill. But the teacher's reaction, that changed everything. He looked genuinely scared. He rushed to the door, slammed it shut, locked it, flicked off the lights, and he really yelled at the kids, "Get in the corner, now!" That's when it hit them. All of them. This was real. Something bad was happening. So they all huddled together in the corner, scared, quiet. And then the silence was just broken by this crazed screaming. Coming from the hallways, it was just one man's voice, incoherent yelling, chanting. Couldn't make out the words at first, but the screams got louder, echoing, closer and closer, until the sound was right outside their classroom door. Then, bam, bam, horrifying bangs on their door. A bunch of the kids screamed, started crying. And the man on the other side, he started screaming actual words, awful words. "Your God is dead. Jesus didn't die for your sins. You're all gonna burn." Their teacher was trying to whisper, trying to keep them calm, but the band kept screaming. He started yelling, "I hear you in there. I see you. Open up the door." The student telling this story said he also yelled things she didn't get then, but later understood were like Islamic phrases, but used aggressively to shame their Catholic religion. That kind of targeted verbal attack, especially on kids, must leave scars.
Absolutely. It's incredibly damaging. This highlights the profound psychological impact of that kind of verbal assault. It's not just random threats. It's targeted, attacking their core beliefs, their sense of safety within their own religious identity in their school. For young children who are still forming their understanding of the world and their place in it, This kind of hateful, aggressive rhetoric can be deeply traumatizing. It can instill fear and anxiety that lasts long after the immediate danger is gone. The words themselves become weapons.
Yeah. Eventually, the banging on their specific door stopped, but they could still hear the screaming continuing further down the hall, fading slightly. Sounds like the man just kept moving through the halls, yelling, until finally his scream seemed to get, overpowered by other men yelling. The student assumes that's when police or security must have tackled him or taken him down. They stayed in that locked-down classroom for a really long time afterwards. Felt like forever. School was dismissed early again. Parents rushing in, scared to pick up their kids. The student calls it a bit of a scarring experience, and adds that, being so young, they didn't even fully grasp how truly bizarre and dangerous the whole thing was at the time. Just relief. Deep relief that nobody got physically hurt. Wow.
So these 5 stories, they're chilling, aren't they? They really paint a picture. Danger doesn't always announce itself. It can just appear right in the middle of the ordinary, in places we think are safe. And they really hammer home how much rests on individual choices, those split-second decisions in a crisis, and the impact. It clearly stays with people for a long, long time.
It does, and looking at them together, you see a pattern, right? Drills are essential. They build muscle memory for procedures. But true preparedness, it goes beyond just following steps. It's about cultivating situational awareness, really seeing what's happening around you. It's about being able to think quickly, adapt when things don't go by the script. And it's about understanding just how unpredictable people can be under extreme stress. Building resilience, not just robotic compliance, is key.
So as you've been listening to these accounts, maybe think about this. Where are the supposedly safe spaces in your own life? Could there be vulnerabilities you haven't considered? And just think about how one single decision made under pressure could potentially change everything. It's a sobering thought. Thank you for joining us for this really intense deep dive today. These stories were difficult, but important to hear. If they resonated with you or made you think, please do like and share this discussion. And make sure you subscribe to the deep dive for more explorations into fascinating, sometimes really surprising topics. Until next time, take care and stay aware.